Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning. It's Diana here, the founder of Reiki Move. And as you can see, we have a special guest here. I'm joined by Dr. Thornton Streeter, the founder and CEO of the Center for Biofield Sciences. Thank you so much for your time. Hi, Thornton. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well. It's lovely to be here. The wonders of modern science that allow us to be present and yet save on driving and parking and buying expensive fuel.
Absolutely. The modern way of living, right? Technology connects us all, not just energy, right? So that's brilliant to have you here. And big thank you on behalf of the whole Reiki Move community. As you know, we are live streaming this little chat with you to both the Reiki Move community group and onto our YouTube channel. And lovely followers, today, I am so happy to announce that you're going to witness some amazing research analysis on the human biofield. And what do we mean by that? Is actually the energy field, which is not just the physical limits of the body, but it expands and connects us all in a much wider concept, which builds up to the modern concept of what we now understand under mind and body wellness. As you know, that's what Reiki Move is about. That is our main mission with Reiki Move, to create a practical guidance, an easy way to understand how it all works. Why is it important to balance the chakras? What we can do to maintain our health overall, and to actually solve the source of any issues rather than treating symptoms. Because probably I might not be the only one to say that we were brought up in a system where the understanding of health itself is very limited to biochemistry. Maybe we can blame it on our education in the Western world, not sure. And now we can experience big waves of enlightenment and spiritual awakening, where we are now experiencing something else. We can actually feel what energy is about and how can we build it into our daily routines and practices. But what's most amazing here, and I can't wait to hand it over to Thornton to share some exciting images about the human energy field, because now we can detect it. Now we can actually track it and see what happens if we are putting effort into it on a regular basis, what we can actually achieve and why is it good for us overall. So Thornton, I'm very excited to hear from you and your story. Would you mind starting with introducing yourself and sharing the story behind how you changed careers, because I believe it was that you had a little change there as your background, and how you ended up with actually founding the Biofield Sciences?
Well, I mean, I do appreciate a question like that. It is so wide, you can almost start anywhere. But I think the best place for me to start is you know, when I met this amazing teacher, and her name is Mare Master Moose. And it does cut a long story short, because she had spent quite a few years doing a thesis on the human energy field, and had been appointed, I think, dean of a university. So she was really looking for somebody to carry on with the research. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And it was just one of those moments. I was sitting on a chest outside her office with her. She's a tiny little lady, and touching the ground. I remember that. And so I committed to, you know, a life and a career investigating the human, as we called it then, energy field, and now the human biofield. And I think I was pretty well equipped, because I hadn't studied science. I'd studied theology. And so, you know, my mind was not kind of compartmentalized with that biochemistry which you spoke of earlier. I guess, well, I think I probably was quite clairvoyant at that stage. You know, was, you know, I suppose confused why modern medicine wasn't speaking to the elephant in the room. It seemed to me that, if you wander around a museum or an art gallery, the ancient artists had painted halos and carved, very specific features of the energy field in wood and casted in bronze, and yet modern medicine kind of left us very physical, and so it was an easy jump for me. The other thing I think was helpful was that had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, so it made sense for me to kind of open a research environment where we could interact with all the other players, if you like. So we actually set up a lab in Exeter in the UK, where there were two departments of complementary medicine associated with Exeter University at the time. And we also set up a lab in India, which meant that we could, do a lot of work in both places and stretch our coin as far as we could. And in India, we met scientists who'd been very much trained in this kind of blinkered way, the modern scientific way, but at home, they practiced RT and did yoga, and so they themselves didn't have the doubt that we see in the West. So I think these were definitely the coals that set my fire alight. Meeting Mayor Master Moose, accepting her invitation, and then seeing a sensible rollout by doing research in England, which had our tradition in Great Britain with common law is very much that we trust nature, and there's a real history, Culpepper's and beyond, who of herbalists and natural medicine pioneers, Dr. Batch, who've been able to really flourish in Britain. I think it's to do with our ancient traditions, really. The traditions of Britain allow for us to be garden shed scientists and sort of work stuff out. And yeah, I think that's really, the environment that was established. So, fast forward to, I guess 25 years ago, and here we are with a really well-equipped lab. People were starting to invent devices, again, as you alluded to, which measured subtle energy, or putative energy, as they called it. One of the first names that I'm sure strikes a chord with you is Kirlian, Semyon Kirlian, who just observed this effect.
Right.
But it's funny, a picture does speak 1,000 words. Although, I'm very proud of my lockdown mullet, I think it's probably a good idea to show you some pictures. And yeah, and I think it's a great opportunity because, please, if there are any questions, this is a flow experience. And although I do have some images, I definitely would like you all to think that you could butt in or ask a question. But
Thank you, Thornton.
when we're talking about something in a scientific environment, and we have the rulers and the lenses, it's crazy not to show you what we're talking about. And it allows me to kind of approach this subject from an opportunity of sharing, because this technology is available to everybody. They just need to use it. These two pictures, I think, are quite important because they show the actual kind of geometry of the biofield, which isn't a kind of gingerbread man glow, ready brick glow. It really is this amazing, complete, shielded system. and what my colleague John Catchpole and other luminaries that came before us, like Harry Oldfield, have developed, is a sort of honest standoff imaging system which observes the salient and relevant features of this biofield. Now, Diana, you've got my voice reverberating in the background somewhere. I don't know whether you can quieten that down a bit.
We'll see. I hope it's not echoing that much. Let me.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of echoing.
I hope it will help so you don't hear yourself echoing.
Yeah. I don't think it's my end. I don't think it's my end, but it could be. But anyhow, I mean, you know, I will bear that in mind. So, you know, we all wear a few different hats. You very kindly mentioned the Center for Biofield Sciences. I also think it's appropriate to talk about the Energy Medicine Exchange, which we founded a few years ago, which is really a kind of meeting space, a kind of hot springs, if you like, for healers and scientists who are interested in healing. It's on Facebook and easy to find, a group. And more recently,
that's how I got in touch with you, right?
Exactly.
Through that community. So yeah, that's brilliant. Otherwise, we wouldn't have you here.
Thank you.
Owing to technology, and thank you for all this lovely background. It helps to put the whole story into context and to have some background information on yourself as well, because I think it's all super exciting to see where you're coming from and then to see how much the science itself developed. And a huge thanks to you and your team. And obviously, I'm not gonna lie, we are super excited to see the slides that you're gonna share with us to put some tangible visualized images on what we are usually talking about during our sessions when we are going through the chakras, the seven main chakras, where it's all coming from. So it's all really, really astonishing.
Yeah. Well, actually, Diane, I hope to do a little bit more than that, actually, because, you know, when you are a scientist and you hold the ruler and the lens, as I said, you also have this opportunity to kind of create a kind of biofield back loop where just by the exposure to kind of witnessing healers working, constantly working to serve others, you know, it creates a kind of perfect environment to kind of digest and assimilate, you know, these components that you were speaking about. So, you know, hopefully by the end of our little chat, not only am I going to show you some interesting pictures, but I'm also going to kind of take us to a point which I think is the crucial point to be at. And yeah, I promise to blow your socks off.
We are super excited. Thank you, Thornton.
Okay, well, let's dive into this. Let's dive in, because, you know, there are so many ironies, so many signposts in the world, our world, for us to see and witness what we're addressing here. I've got to let the dog in, excuse me.
No worries at all.
Right, buddy.
We love to have pets during our sessions as well, right?
Okay, so
cats and dogs. Welcome back. Oh, super cute.
I'm sorry.
What's his or her name?
His name is Ozzy.
Another special cat, another special guest here. That's brilliant.
I didn't even realize he was going to be on, but he's Ozzy, come on. Okay, that's enough, buddy. Come on.
Really welcome.
Good boy, good boy, good boy, good boy. Well done.
How cute.
Okay, so we travel from the Wizard of Oz to the land of the Greys, and there are two Greys in medicine right now. I'm sure you've heard of Grey's Anatomy. It's a sort of big tomb of medical literature and imagery, which allows a medical student to dissect the human body into all its constituent mechanical parts. But we also have the visionary Alex Grey, who, with his sacred mirrors, left us wondering, where is the boundary? Where is the edge? It's certainly not the skin. Alex Gray's images of the chakras and the biofield are historic and famous. And by all means, look him up and have that aha moment if you haven't seen his pictures before. But in this slide, you'll also notice another traffic light, a kind of signpost, an early signpost along the pathway. We call the yin yang. And this yin yang, of course, is a cartouche, a graffiti in 2D, which you can do with ink because you've only got one color. And it allows us to see something that is actually, as you see in the lower images, more of a a three-dimensional figure with entry points rather than a sign for duality. And this is actually important. And this is why this slide is called perspective, because what I'm suggesting from this very grainy image is that we've kind of been under a spell of duality by signposts like this, which actually don't even mean what we think they mean. So here we go. Alex Gray, yes, here you can see his beautiful integration of the chakras and the meridians. The sacred law was protected by the Himalayas, and the Oriental culture held the lotus of the energy channels and highlighted them as the meridians for thousands of years. And the rishis of India were granted the lotus of the chakras to maintain. And it's only now in this modern era that we have this dangerously double-edged sword where both lotus, the ancient knowledge of the Orient and the ancient knowledge of the Vedas, is brought together for us to transcend the aforementioned spell of duality. So, as I said, my speciality is imaging and what the eye sees. Seeing is believing. Here you can see an orange in the cul-de-sac of modern medicine, where we materially peer inside a thing. I often say when I show this slide, at what price? One of the most horrific crimes in the world is gendercide, when we peer inside the female body to identify a female child and remove it. This is responsible for, I think, the loss of 300 million girls in the world in the last few decades. Another elephant in the room, and certainly a reason why armies of men will never find love. Modern medicine has a lot to answer for, and we have to ask ourselves, what is the price for peering into the body? What is the point of mammography if every time we have a mammogram, 5% chance of getting cancer is cast upon us? So by the time we're 50, it's a coin toss whether we're going to get cancer or not from the scan itself. I mean, we can't go on like this. And this is why we're entering a new era of energy medicine and non-invasive diagnosis. So this image on the right is of the orange's energy body. So, I'm an orange tree sucking the living daylights out of the sun, and I create this perfect environment, this womb for my seeds to grow. And that is a ball of sunlight, of plasma. And it's this plasma which we dropped in the material spell experience we were in for the last kind of 100 years or so, whereby there's ice, there's water, and there's steam. But there's no plasma. Plasma is just the fourth state of matter. And in this particular case, we can see the bioplasma emanating from the fingertip. We only see it in that particular area because there's a plate underneath with a charge, which is allowing that plasma to become illuminated. It is all the way around. We can only just see that part of it where the finger's approaching. But what's important to realize is that this is the skeleton of the soul. Our fingertips, our handprint, our palm can be read by an expert who can speak to past lives. So the grooves that are formed by this plasma is that kind of mercurial plasma vehicle with which we come with. We then embody the physicality and tune this plasma equipment whilst we're here. Now, the technology that Oldfield and Catchpole and I developed, and here the very grainy 3D image actually allows us to take the old style Kirlian imagery, where you need this sort of charged plate, and we can separate ourselves from the charged plate and view the energy body in its entirety. So here, as I said, you can see the hands, but you can actually see the meridians, the nadis, flowing down through the fingers, and the red peaks are the congested meridians. In this case, again, in 3D, we can identify without doubt with a non-invasive video camera-based technology. In other words, something you can use online, distant screening online, because issues show up like a clown's red nose. In this case, it's physical pain in the knees. But if you're a chiropractor, an osteopath, or a physiotherapist, you've got this information, or better, a Reiki master, you can focus your energy exactly on these spots, and that's kind of, go straight to go healing, collect 400. You have to rummage around in the old Kent Road looking for a decent doctor. It's precision based guidance healing we're entering now, this realm.
This is absolutely amazing, Thornton. I've never seen this 3D imaging before. It's almost like having a geographical view, what we normally see, in certain countries and continents. And I'm just amazed to see and would love to understand how this machine that you're using or device works. If you would have to break it down to really simplified terms, because sometimes I do like to share information on different frequencies that now I know that can be measured for the energy body, and I usually get questions around that, but how is it measured? So if people are asking about the actual method behind, what is the easiest, most simplified way to answer?
Okay, well, I did mention the word clairvoyant earlier, and I think it's appropriate to dissect what that word actually means. Clairvoyant just means clear seeing from the French. And what the Biofield viewer system allows us to do is to see clearly. We use a standardized light. It can be the sun, but just a standardized light so that we have repeatability. Because obviously, as we've learned from epigenetics and people like Bruce Lipton, our environment is the driver for our being. And so if we're going to be doing science of the biofield, we need to standardize that environment so we can observe what we're actually observing. Now, how does the system work? Well, I already alluded to the fact that we use a normal video camera in the same way that the human eye normally allows us just to see the visible spectrum, but with a little bit of practice we can widen that range of sight into infrared and ultraviolet, and I think effectively that's a simple way of explaining what our system is doing. We use non-linear programming, and that's the key. non-linear programming, I guess, is a bit like how the brain works, rather than linear, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're using a very sophisticated programming which allows us to super accentuate the gradations of light intensity. Okay, so
Right.
super accentuate the gradations of light intensity. In other words, what we're effectively doing is allowing the viewer to notice things which they don't normally notice because the brain has discounted them from its programming. You know,
Right.
all we need to do is look at a pen, look at the blackboard, look at a pen, look at the blackboard, look at the pen on the
Yeah.
desk, look at the
Mhm.
blackboard,
Yeah.
look at the pen on the desk, look at the whiteboard a few hundred times, and that creates the mind focusing with its eyes rather than looking and seeing, which are the real abilities of our visual equipment. You know, we're using it in its most limited way because of pavements and door handles, and as I said, forementioned pencils. But the important thing is that we come to this discussion really loaded. I'm not here with tea leaves and pendulums saying you got to believe me. This is scientific, repeatable evidence with equipment that we've had to wait for. We've had to wait for a Stone Age, a medieval age, age of enlightenment, industrial age, steam age, computer age, quantum computing age, nonlinear programming age to finally deliver technology sensitive enough to measure this stuff. And so what we're delivering isn't a maybe, it's the actual future. And that's why it's important to be a healer practicing Reiki rather than a surgeon, cutting people and stitching people up. That's old style healthcare. And, we've proved it. It's just science is an old dog. It stands in its ivory tower. The knowledge of consciousness is the river which meanders off, and this ivory tower is left there with all these idiots in it. And then eventually the river of consciousness actually undermines the sands beneath the ivory tower. And, we end up with a sort of Planet of the Apes type moment with the Statue of Liberty emanating from the said crystals. So anyhow, this is an image, really kind of an important image of biophotonic emissions. And for us, roll-up cigarette smokers, it's something to be wary of, because this is an Italian lab technician whose biophotons are leaking out of his fingertips, where the nicotine and the heat or whatever is kind of yellowing the insides of his fingers at the end there. And this is something that I kind of had an epiphany with Claude Swanson about many years ago, is that actually we don't really want to be emanating our biophotons as such. They go crazy in the bulb, in the body, and the shine is our biofield. We actually leak out our biophotons. That's like, masturbating to porn. It's a waste of time energetically. So within all the analogs and parables in there, it's important for us to understand what is integrity, and biophotonic emissions speak to that in a really uncanny way. People talk about acupuncture points as being kind of mysterious, junctures in the body that only some ancient Zen master can find. But there's actually a 70,000 ohm difference between an acupuncture point and a non-point. And with new technology, we can visualize the acupuncture points. I was in Germany a while ago with a lady who sang 99 Red Balloons, crikey, Nina, and her family, and her daughter-in-law had this incredible device. I think it was called Enki or NG or something. And you got in this dark room, lay on this table, and she passed this wand over somebody. And you could see all the acupuncture points shining like a constellation. I mean, it was out of this world. German, I'll put it in the notes afterwards. It's got a funny name.
Thank you.
This is a Russian machine, which you can see the name of, AccuVision 4, which does a similar thing, but in not quite so spectacular way, because you kind of got to get it right over the points. I wanted to show this slide because in the last 20 years, these vessels have been discovered in the body. And because of the divorce in medicine, I think the associations haven't been fully made or understood. But it's definitely a sort of Google Alice and down the rabbit hole moment for our viewers to just make a note of the premovascular system and perhaps the associations that it has with the nadis and the meridians, which I personally find so fascinating. Okay, let's keep going. Well, this is our Biofield viewer system. It's a live thing. You can even do it online through Skype, StreamYard, or anything. Obviously, you can see there's a white background, and in this particular instance, there's a healer operating on our subject. But I'm not going to show the whole thing because it does rather go on. But I just want to draw your attention to a few features. We can see the chakras very clearly with the Biofield viewer. We can see suggestions which speak to very individual issues, whether they're physical or emotional. These sort of hot pink spots. I don't know whether you can see my mouse.
Yes.
Clearly. There are hot spots that we're observing during a healing session, and obviously statistically analyzing as well. Now, I'm going to just fast forward a bit, as I said, because I don't want to spend too long here. Now, she's about to yawn and have what I call the phase shift, which you guys do every day at Reiki Move, where you kind of address all the issues and then the healing's allowed to occur.
Wow, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, and of course, this is a live real-time system which is using video technology, so it's accessible on any device. So you can just, have your mobile phone and record a healer doing that. And of course, think about what the healee is experiencing when they see it.
Absolutely mind-blowing, Thornton, to see actually the energetic shift, how it translates into light as we can perceive it. And what happens on an energetic level then when we can see this color change, because that's how it interprets on the screen here. What happens behind this? What is your understanding there?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, I guess it's to do with the symphony of frequencies that the core being is emanating and the alignment and harmonies that they strike. As I said, there's this phase shift that we call healing that happens in a session. But what's happening before that moment is probably a bit like a kind of fusing of leaks, because, until the biofield has symmetry, it cannot maintain any higher amplitude. It's a bit like a tent in a storm. If the tent is put upright and all the guy ropes are down, you're going to sleep fine. But if the canes are twisted and the guy ropes aren't right, it's going to blow off in the storm. So that's what we're doing as healers. We're first working on the symmetry of the biofield by addressing emotional blockages and leaks. And once that's done, then we can turn up the power. Otherwise, the bulb can't handle that kind of wattage. So healing is in two phases. There's another video made by my friend Valerie Hunt. A similar equipment she made in the 80s. I mean, this is not new stuff. You can see the girl going into the lotus position, and when she starts omming, she kind of lights up like an oxyacetylene torch. And so, you know, if you think about viruses or any kind of disharmonious vibrations at all, we're fully equipped with
I'm
our...
already blown away, Thornton. I have to say, I just can't believe my own eyes. You know, it's interesting when you're going through these spiritual practices, whatever you're doing, oming or any kind of meditation, you do feel a sense of calm and peace, and we may have slightly different sensations in the body that we try to focus on while grounding, etc., to have a full experience of it. And to see it in front of you on a screen, this is something else. I feel like being in the future with you.
Well, like I said, I mean, this is accessible, and I want to do a project with the Reiki Move crew so that every single person has access to this technology from tomorrow or yesterday. You know, that's really what we want to do.
We will make it happen, Thornton. You know, I don't believe in consequences. Our paths cross for a reason, and I can't wait to have this sort of equipment in the Reiki Move world so we can actually track how we are balancing our energy body. And,
well, then you can talk about percentage improvements for a personal journey. You know, this is just a soul mirror which allows you to calibrate your progress, you know, and if you're not going forward, you can see that, and so you're making different choices. It's an opportunity for us to see our energetic choices as they play out. But you know, humor me by explaining why and how this all works. You know, this is a slide that I come back to quite often, created by a real pioneer in the field, Joey Jones, from California. He's left us now, but he was using the medical technology functional MRI, which is what these three images are at the top of the brain. And you know, by stimulating the vision point on the toe, the acupuncture point, he showed that you illuminated the same area of the brain as by shining a light in the eye. So he was basically saying, you know, we really got to look at Chinese acupuncture and this sort of fast track healing opportunity, and not poo-poo the obvious. But I think what I like about this slide is something completely different. It's that if I shine a light in the eye, it takes quarter of a second for the light to reach the brain and illuminate the visual cortex. That's what we call the speed of light. But if I stimulate the vision point on the toe 2 meters away, it actually happens, as you can see, in James Bond speed. In other words, the meridian system is the broadband fiber optic superhighway, and the nervous system is the old-fashioned copper wires and switches, and it takes a while for the fan to come on. So it's crucial for us to be aware of the significance of the mama and acupuncture points, the nadis, the meridians, and the chakras and the dantians. This is the anatomy of the biofield. And moving forward, obviously for the Reiki movers, it's you know, subtle anatomy 101. But for everyone else, they've got to get up to speed. Okay, so now you really do have to indulge me, Diana, because what we're talking about, what I've been talking about, and what you have been teaching and sharing around the world as Reiki Move is only relevant when your party is in the optimum state of awareness. And there are several things which can limit that state of awareness. And now a lot of people are talking about the chakras. And so I want to add my 2 cents worth into this discussion, because the chakras to me are not, crikey, they're certainly not traffic lights. They are components of a system And the system doesn't work if each of those components isn't. So it's a bit more like an engine or a being than a set of cards or a plume of colors. So here we go. Anyway, and remember, I think the key word here is awareness. Awareness, yes. So bringing awareness to the first dimension. What is this? This is what we call in our, yoga books, the base chakra. Okay? The base chakra is this being's connection with the first dimension. Okay? So the first dimension, what is that? When we look it up on Google, we see that the first dimension relates to Earth. It's an emerging from the 0 point. It relates to the base chakra. It's the world of potential. Okay, so I don't care if I've lost you because I'm going to find you right down the end of this story. Don't worry.
We're all with you. I'm sure it's all really well explained. And by the way, let me just mention to all the viewers here that I'm not ignoring the questions coming in. Thank you. Please keep them coming. I will raise those questions at the end of this chat with Thornton. Okay. So any questions, just put it in the comment section. Thank you.
Yeah. So imagine this. I'm a child emerging from my mother's womb. This is the emerging from the 0 point. And I'm taking my first breath. Okay, this is where we are with this slide. This first breath, you're half out. Okay? So what is the second dimension? This is the second chakra. The second chakra is a gyroscopic plasmic lens for anchoring to dimensionality, which we call the second dimension. Okay, so this child is being born, it takes its first breath, and who does it see? Who does it see? It sees the mother, the brother, the other. Okay, so we've got this one-dimensional point now drawing a direct line of consciousness to the mother, the brother, the father, the other, the doctor, all these other characters. That's why this diagram has a point in the center and all these lines going out. We're still stuck on a piece of paper because this is theoretical. Consciousness is an onion. This is us analyzing an aspect of the onion, the second dimension. So the base chakra is all about grounding, isn't it? This chakra, the second chakra, is all about relationships with these people we've just met, the mother, the brother, and the other. So fair enough. This is the emerging world. The potential world is one dimension. This is the emerging world. And what I'm suggesting is that we have two chakras, the base chakra and the navel chakra, which exclusively deal with this stuff subconsciously. I know I'm not making any sense. I'm going to get you in a minute. Don't worry. Okay. So now we enter the third dimension. Now, if we think in terms of science TV, 3D is called space, isn't it? Right. So we know 3D is space. So finally, I've got off the bit of paper, this theoretical 1D, 2D world, and I'm actually standing here in space. We know what space is. That's 3D. Okay. So my solar plexus anchors me to space. In fact, the lower three chakras, rather like the space station, make me feel like I'm still when I'm standing on a ball which is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, charging towards the constellation of Hercules at God knows what speed. Okay, I feel like I'm still. This is crucial for consciousness. The lower three chakras mesh us, lattice us into the matrix we call space. That's what they do. That's
amazing.
What
Thank you.
Do they're our space gear. It's the spacesuit for Earth, and they allow us to experience You see, the thing about space that's wonderful, we can see each other, there's dimensionality, but the thing about space is it's frozen. It's like me sitting here going like, I want to, but I'm frozen. I need time. I need time to live. I need time to exist. And time is this fabulous wave that we clock with our heart. The heart beats to time. Okay. The lower three chakras create a surfboard for us to ride the wave that we call time. And the heart chakra is the cosmic lens of time. The heart itself is the clock. You know, when the Greeks first measured the heartbeat, we used to beat about 60 beats a minute. You know, now we're in a goddamn crypto rush, and so everybody's heart beats a lot faster. But the point is that if you want to access healing powers, you need to show up on your surfboard riding the wave of time. Otherwise, you do not get access to that sacred sports gearbox that we call, you know, the throat chakra, the brow chakra, and the crown chakra. So right now, all of us are riding down this ball. It's a very important picture, this. This is not a wave that crashes and dumps you on the beach with a face full of sand. This is a wave which rides down the river of consciousness forever. And you can get back on this wave whenever you like. It's there. Ride it. Or flounder, holding your board strapped to your feet, getting mouthfuls of spume. Ride the wave. This is the reality of our lower four chakras. That's what they do. You know, people say, are they spin? Are they flowers? How many you know, what's the frequency? Fuck all that. This is our sacred equipment, and it allows us to be present. This is all about presence. Because if I'm not riding my board with presence, I is going to fall off that board. So what we're talking about here is, you know, the rishis talked about the here and now. But what we're really talking about is the functional and the functionality of the lower four chakras. Because what you can do when you're patting your head and rubbing your stomach and riding the surfboard of materialism on the wave we call time, what you can then do is, very importantly, work beyond space and time, because they are space and time. Space and time is what we use to experience that awareness. They happen, divine gift. But beyond space and time is where we operate as healers. Okay? So that's how I can, for example, take a 27-year-old traumatized person back to their childhood to witness themselves as they rise to the challenge of this trauma and transmute it and digest it so that they can come back to this moment now and have a cup of tea and thank you very much. We fixed that ting back there. And this is why the throat chakra is the most sacred bridge between the physical world of car dealers and stockbrokers and, you know, penny share piddlers and everyone else, and us now claiming our opportunity, our rightful divine place, which is, you know, servants of divinity serving the others, you know, because I can talk, I can sing the monkeys out of the trees with this divine communication. But if I haven't worked out my, the spirit level, you know, a spirit level as in measuring straight lines in time and space. So we too have a spirit level. They're called the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. They're much under attack at the moment. things as fluoride. But the fact is that our whole being is directed by this multi-vibrational, multi-dimensional spirit level, which sees, for example, the master glands sending hormones to trigger the other glands to perform certain functions on a physical realm. But on an energetic perspective, those glands are but the buds of flowers. You know, satellites open up to receive particular frequencies. That's really what our chakras are fundamentally tasked with. These gyroscopic space station jets have to not only eliminate etheric material in their spin, which creates their dimensionality and shape, but they also are responsible for reharmonizing this spirit level on both the horizontal and the vertical. For example, as I said, by triggering hormones. But what's actually happening is that the hormone is just a carrier, the lens is the chakra. And so, for example, I may be being asked to open up and absorb more violet frequency with my crown chakra because of congestion at my base chakra. So there's a process of you've spoken and alluded to vibrations already, but that's what our chakras are doing. That's our frontline subconscious harmonization system. And it's only when this vibrational delicate device is compromised that we get sick. You know, all this stuff goes on for months. We can observe the chakras opening and closing, base chakra, you know, a chakra gets blocked, the one below opens up, tries to energize it. You know, you're dancing through elements at this stage. But anyway, I don't want to lose you guys. The crown chakra, obviously, it's like the grid for our bumper car. And so when I speak to this fifth, sixth, and seventh dimension, this is a triage between divine communication, sacred intent, and the source. Because, you know, if I'm not connected with source, speaking and serving that source, and I'm just trying to use my own thing, and I'm cut off from source, in other words, pride over humility, then we end up sucking the living daylights out of everybody else, and that's a rotten healer. You know, perhaps in part 2 of this discussion, we can go into this kind of thing. You know, how to kind of optimize and work with a kind of ecstasy that is on offer when we embrace all of these things.
I found it really interesting, Thornton. Sorry to interrupt here. No. I just wanted to raise a question. First of all, to point out the really nice example of picturing ourselves riding the wave, and it just shows me that we have the power, right? As you explained really nicely, that it's all about awareness, it's about being present, and it's a great way to empower ourselves, knowing that we are in control of our own destiny, we are in control of our own healing. And it all starts with us, right? By actually making the conscious decision. And as with Reiki move, you know how many times every single session we start doing something, a particular move or any kind of practice, with setting our intention on doing something. And why setting our intention is absolute key with energy healing. And just as you brought up to the 7th chakra here, as I believe one of the challenges is upgrading our consciousness, which is probably the most difficult task, to actually challenge ourselves, our own current belief systems, the way we see the world, the way we operate. And I think this is where the real changes start to happen, if we are ready to take full responsibility of our decisions and realize that we always have a choice. And are we brave enough to reconsider how we currently see our world, if that makes sense? And how do you see Reiki or any kind of energy healing or connecting with the source, how could it help our healing overall or upgrading our consciousness?
Oh, well, this is crucial. I mean, it's like you know, this is the equipment we need. I mean, as I alluded to earlier, I mean, we've spent thousands of years gathering the right tools, whether they're, you know, a key or a USB or a phone or Reiki. You know, it's crucial for us to have, you know, the ability to navigate time and space and our emotions with this kind of process. And I think that's why I'm here now, is because I think it's important that you have all the support you can get. You know, everybody should have this, much more than a gym card or a you know, an airline miles card. You know, it's crucial to have a self-healing process. And you mentioned the word intent earlier. I mean, that is the key thing, is that, you know, the gods don't have bodies. They don't get the choices that we've got. And so, you know, if we make a choice and we focus our intent on that, you know, that is a kind of emergence on this material plane, that, you know, as you said, you know, can we change the world? Well, this is how we do it. You know, we just draw it down in through our personal play. You know, the God's never going to sit on your lap and say, bad luck, take away your choice. Divinity is tantalizing, you know, and dances at the very end of our nose like a fairy. Whether we decide to play or not is ultimate choice. And so I think there's a sense that fey, delightful people activate each other into this delightful game, you know, which transcends all other plays.
That sounds amazing. Thank you for explaining so well. It's really, really astonishing, all the slides you've shown so far. And now just looking at this image of the lady connecting with the source itself, as we can see the picture of the light as it's traveling through, and we know that we are light ourselves as well. How would you then describe or explain the phenomenon of distance healing? This is a question I receive a lot of times from people who are even regulars in energy healing, and still there are lots of skepticism, I believe, around distance healing. How would you explain it from a scientific background?
Well, I think that's, I mean, I don't know whether we set ourselves up here, because this really is the moment to talk about distant healing. Let's just go back 3 slides a minute. This is the present. Yeah, this is the present, the heart chakra. But how can we work at a distance? Well, it's important to understand, as I just said, the lower 3 chakras maintain the illusion of space, and the heart chakra maintains that in time. And so when you talk about distant healing is happening beyond space and time. And that's why I said you just have to access this triage of the higher 3 chakras. And I mean, I can speak to you in esoteric terms like this, but I can also address the issue from a very scientific process, because I've done a huge, well, I spent a lot of time doing distant healing studies. And so what exactly are we talking about here? I'm in my lab in India. 10,000 miles away, a gentleman is in his clinic in California or Colorado. This is a real study I'm speaking to. Okay, so I have a whole load of volunteers in my research lab, and they're literally subject A, well, 1 to 10. Okay, now the first subject comes into my lab, into the environment, and we start taking biofield images. Okay. And at that point, we're on the phone with the practitioner who is saying, is doing his healing session. So we then observe for 5 minutes this unbelievable transformation in our subject in our lab in India being conducted by this fellow thousands of miles away. And one by one, which each of these subjects, we had this mind-blowing transformation. And we don't just analyze biofields in our lab. We measure normal medical parameters as well, because our labs are populated by doctors. We look at everything. So, distant healing is a proven pillar of parapsychology. There are 5 pillars: distant healing, precognition, remote viewing, which is very well studied, clairvoyance, and did I say telekinesis? But anyway, there are 5 pillars of parapsychology, and distant healing is one of them. And there's a lot of evidence to prove that it works. What I've just told you is how it works, is that we use our brow chakra, our crown chakra, and our throat chakra to do the work. It's a triage of focused intent and divine commune coming from source, riding in that, like a golf ball in the tee, which is the material plane, our bodies, our beings, our thoughts of time. So we're using our sports gearbox, our throat, our brow, and our crown. And that's how we do distant healing, because it operates beyond time and space. In other words, a different frequency set from the lower 4 chakras. That's how we do it.
Thank you so much
I just want to spend 1 minute on the grunties, because the grunties are often the aha moment for many people who've been slogging away, climbing up the mountain with a sack of bricks, never really feeling like they've got anywhere, enjoying the scenic route, but by God, they just want to get to the next level. Well, that may well be to do with these what we call knots, and they come about. It's a bit like scaffolding. The grunties are like scaffolding. You need scaffolding to build the thing in the first place, but then you've got to take it down, and you get accustomed to it, so yeah, I mean, I definitely would encourage my colleagues here, the family that is Reiki Move and beyond, to have a look at these guys, because you may just have an aha moment where you can actually feel a release in one of your sphincters, and it's like, oh my God, and Kundalini comes rushing to flood your eyeballs, and you wonder what you've been missing all this time.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. It's a very, very mind-blowing, interesting information here. And so well explained with the images as well, obviously. So I wonder if it's the time then to ask 1 or 2 questions. That
definitely, absolutely. You please fire.
Couple of more minutes for us. We really appreciate it.
I mean, we have. I mean, if there's a time limit, it's at your end. Parking for breakfast.
That's very kind of you. So let me just read up the question we just received from Tom. And he's saying, may I ask why lately my crown chakra has felt tender to the touch and pressure? When I'm healing, I can feel the energy within me, but now around me, which is new to me. Could you explain perhaps why? Namaste. You may see it in the comment section to the right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I mean, when it comes to questions like this, I mean, I really do feel completely honored to be asked. All I can say is that my teachers told me always wear a hat, because the crown chakra is a very sacred thing, a bit like an organic orange tree or lemon tree that comes sort of emanating from the top of our being and sort of embraces the cosmos. And they're very delicate with all these leaves and little branches. And, it's not something you want to be hauling around the London Underground. So it's good to put a hat on it. But specifically to your question, I'm very aware of this sensitivity too. I think it's just about kind of learning to enjoy sensations, rather than sort of dwelling too much on them. And but also it may well be that you're kind of leaking a lot of energy out of your crown chakra, and that can lead to that same sensitivity. I've banged my head a couple of times, so I know exactly what this person's talking about. So perhaps I won't answer the question with something specific, but I would say wear a hat when you go out. Any kind of hat, whether it's a fluffy thing like this, or just a hat, or a scarf, or a bonnet, or
for protection, right? Yeah.
Pardon?
It's a protective shield, kind of.
Yeah, no, it's a funny thing. No, it's a conscious act, actually. It's not, it's a protective, their concept. No, this is you consciously going, no, I'm putting a lid on this.
All right. Tommy just saying, by the way, that's funny. I literally just bought a hat. So brilliant. Sounds like a perfect first step is done. That's great to hear. So if I may move on then to the next question quickly, from one of our community members. When the chakras are compromised, what is the biggest contributor to that? What would be your comments on this if they are compromised?
Okay, well, I mean, the chakras are compromised because they're very sensitive devices, and if they're overworked and underappreciated, they get congested and affected in all kinds of ways. On a slightly bigger picture, if we imagine the kind of toroidal vortex, which is our kind of vibratory spider's web kind of lattice of harmonics and memories, traumas get stuck in that web, a bit like a fly gets stuck in the web. And, we charge out there and mummify it by wrapping it up in padding. But, at some point, if we don't get out there again and digest that trauma, that fly, it colors our view out in that direction. And it affects the tensegrity of our biofields, with that imbalance. So in terms of total healing, we've got to do a deep sort of spring clean and get in there under the carpet, and address our early traumas and our past life traumas. Now, do we need to dwell, as I said, going from one to the other, giving them thanks and lighting candles and tying flags to the tree? No, we can use our intent, snap our fingers, and as I said, rush straight to go and 400. We don't need to dilly-dally on the scenic route of self-healing. We can claim immediate optimization. So it's up to you. But in terms of individual chakras, what is a chakra doing? A chakra is responsibility for specific range. Right. All of the chakras are responsible for the spectrum, but each chakra is responsible for a range. So if I'm constantly dishonoring the family on a physical plane, then what's going to happen is I'm going to create disharmony in my digestion and my in my navel chakra. So, right. That's you pay as you play. That's what they mean by karma. We govern our own karma because we're set that way, and so we may close the aperture of a chakra to protect it, and in doing so, we may miss out on an opportunity, or we may open a chakra so wide to try and help something else, and by doing so, we become susceptible to a virus or a bacteria because we're so wide open. So the functionality of our chakras is crucial to homeostasis and our well-being, but in a multi-dimensional way, which is fully integrated with who the fuck we think we are.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Honestly, Thornton, thank you for the really detailed explanations here. And as a final question, I just received a question via email actually prior our chat here. So I thought it's just fair enough to pick a question from there as well. And that's our final question for today's. How about the connection between spiritual healing, or like as usually we set our goal as raising our vibrations? How would that contribute to our health overall and our protection against viruses, let's say in this COVID world where we are all, all afraid, trying to boost our immune system? How is it all connected? How can raising our vibration help to actually prevent that?
Well, I think that's a beautiful question, because it goes back to what I asked you all to kind of hold up in front of you when we were going through the chakra journey, which is about awareness. The simple fact is the more multidimensional is our awareness beyond the material plane, the more we don't actually know about these various opportunities, but we have access to them and we can fully integrate and use them. So instead of me going, oh, it's a material world, I'm going to go get a pill or have a jab because they're the solutions, I know something else, which is that I can hum my stuff to a higher vibration, and every virus exists in a certain bandwidth. They exist in a bandwidth. They vibrate in a bandwidth. So as long as I'm humming and vibrating above that bandwidth, I don't need to toxify my being with any other compromises. So yeah, ignorance is bliss. Absolutely, it is. Knowing is bliss too.
I see what you mean here. And I think acknowledgement and just having an open mind can go a really long way, right? In terms of our spiritual journey, just having an open mind really and see what.
Well, no, but it's more than that, Diana. It's what you were saying earlier about intent. It's taking all these material linear strains that we thought about and we were taught about, and actually integrating them into a multi-dimensional presence, which we call intent. And so we get to leapfrog all the bullshit.
Right. Right. So as a closing mark here, after all this amazing information, I'm blown away, and absolutely blown away with all the information we received here. Very overwhelming in a positive way. And as a closing mark, just for people who might be new to this or wondering, okay, I understand that it is a thing, 7 chakra system, definitely it exists and healing works. So how can I go about my everydays? How can I bring healing into my everydays? What are those very basic, very simple things we can help people with, just suggesting a couple of ideas for them to contribute or include in their everyday's routine? What would you say? Where to get it started?
Well, the most important thing is presence. So if you've got that, you've got everything, because you've got access to everything. So if you can just imagine that you're standing on your surfboard, which is your own self, riding the wave of time, and you're just balancing in a very kind of tactile and genuine and humble way on reality. Sure, the ground, but also time. If you can be there, if you can be present, when somebody says something, you're there for them. You're not just over the newspaper. No, present means engaged. And of course, that's the true nature of being. So if we can be present, then everything else is just there, like on a fruit stall. You know, oranges, bananas.
Yeah.
Help yourself. It's
Sounds
all.
amazing, right? It starts with mindfulness, and we all know that it can be challenging, not as easy as it sounds. But I'm calling all Reiki movers out here that always feel free to join our live sessions, where this is exactly what we are practicing, as we are on a journey together. And if we can contribute to your everydays, to feel more in peace with yourself, learn how to be more mindful, how to be more present, how to open up to this divine energy, then I feel like our intent will be definitely ticked off, because that is our mission here, to help you all on this journey. And huge gratitude to you, Thornton, for your time today. As we did stretch the time limits a little bit, that I'm so grateful you still answered those extra questions today. So where could all the viewers go if they are interested in more scientific proof and news? Have you got a particular website you would like to guide them to?
Well, I mean, I do encourage people to search, and I think keywords are really crucial. I think the word biofield is one of those keywords, because it kind of created a blank page for all the energy medicine, holistic human energy field researchers to look at it in a fresh light. But yeah, I mean, passing words, yeah, join us at the Energy Medicine Exchange. We also have a group called the Council of Biofield Scientists on Facebook if you want to tangle with some of the other scientists. Names like Shamini Jain spring to mind. She's a young American pioneer spearheading investigations into this field. She runs an organization called Chi. I'm a big fan of Eileen McCusick and the work she's done to upgrade biofield science. But yeah, I mean, you know, the key to all of this is the breath. You know, that's what we can do. Everything else is subconscious, but we can breathe. So, you know, the gearbox is the breath. If we think we're stuck in first gear, learn about the breath, because that's the gearbox of life. That's all I can say in passing and in conclusion to this fabulous. Share my bits and pieces with you and your lot, Diana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thornton. And as you all know, on the reikimove.com website, we've started a blog for this particular reasons, where I will be doing my best to share with you some interesting findings on the scientific side of all this healing. And Thornton, I think now we go away to digest all this, because the most astonishing part for me is always the simplicity, that it really is as simple as it is challenging at the same time, just as you said, that it all starts with the breath and to be present, which is available for all of us. So we are basically excluding, or the what if scenarios, that I will be happy if. It's basically taking the responsibility to make a conscious decision, a conscious choice for our own health, both on a mind and body perspective. And everything you said today, I'm so grateful for. I really hope that the others found it useful as well. Thank you so much, Thornton. It was brilliant.
Not at all. I'll come back anytime you need me.
We will take an advantage of it. So be careful if if you suggest that. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Thornton. And have a lovely day, everyone, watching this video. Bless you all. Love and light. Take care.